So facing this is a big problem. That's what Arjuna is talking about here. Ayati Siddhayo Pedu Yogan Chalidamanasaha. So Yoga Chalidamanasaha means somebody who has deviated or had a setback in spiritual life. Aprapya yogasam siddhim aprapya, without and before achieving progress. It could happen to many people. It's called, frequently called dark night of the soul. Kam Katim Krishna Gachadi. What happens to those people? It's a big question. That frequently it torments our mind. I've made a lot of progress, and ascent, stability, then a few inches coming backward. And at that time, we feel we are stranded. We are not making any progress. People become skeptical. People turn to atheism. And you can find this happening. That's what Arjuna is questioning here. In answer to this question, Krishna gives a very interesting answer. That's a has a great practical relevance in our everyday life. Krishna's answer is, and then Arjuna continues, he emphasizes the problem. Kachino ubhe vibrashtaha. Ubhe vibrashta means, you have spent years and years coming to Vedanta societies, going to churches, reading scriptures, going to Himalayas, and then suddenly you feel, I have not made any progress, all the money wasted, I could have worked hard, could have made great progress in your professional life. So that is gone, and this also is gone. Ubhe vibrashta means having lost both the world of secular prosperity and world of spiritual enlightenment. Ubhe vibrashta. So, Kam Katim Krishna Gachadi. What happens to those people? So he is ayatihi and he is ubhe vibrashta. He has not succeeded in controlling his senses. He has not succeeded. He had a deviation, a path. It could happen to people. You find suddenly in families, you find small children. Your own families, perhaps some of you may have. So your children are more interested in meditation. It could happen to people. Grandparents watching TV, election, impeachment programs and all that. And children meditating. You can find this. Not very common, unfortunately, but still it happens. The reason is these children, that's what Lord Krishna is going to tell us right now. These children were meditating their previous life. And they have become ayati and subhe vibrashta. Somehow there was a deviation. They're born again, and suddenly they may read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna or maybe any spiritual classic, and suddenly they are attracted because the old samskaras suddenly come to the surface. It's like a lake, different layers of samskaras. So if they are so intensely interested, it means they have done it in the past. That's what Lord Krishna is going to speak to us now. So, Partha Naiveka Namutra Vinashas Tasya Vidyade Nahi Kalyanakrit Kaschi Durgatim Tada Gachati. This is a great promise of the Gita. Partha Naiveka Namutra. Iha Amutra Na. No, you won't lose anything either in this world or the next. No Vinasha. You are never too late, and nothing is lost. So even if you have meditated maybe for 10 minutes every day for some years, or you may not have meditated at all, but just at the end of your life you have had a good fortune to listen to some great spiritual ideas, that will create a spiritual bank balance, and you are born with a checkbook and fountain pen. That is a great promise of Gita, So this can be understood only if you believe in the doctrines of love, karma, and rebirth. See, if you believe that you have only one life to live, it's just like you are preparing for Olympics and you only one trial. If you don't satisfy the expectations, then you won't participate. So Lord Krishna says, nothing is lost and you are never late. It's a big question. Ayadi Sraddhayo Pedo Yoga Chalidamanasaka Aprapi Yoga Samsiddhim Kam Kadim Krishna Gachati. What will be his fate? He meditated, prayed, went to Himalayas, served Vedanta Society for several years, and then suddenly there was something, mind completely confused. You don't go and become a member of the nihilistic or iconoclastic group. You don't do that because you already accumulated some wealth and put in the bank, spiritual bank. And even you are born again, this bank balance, even if you don't want, it will be with you. You have no option. If you have done something good, then you will have to bear the good fruits of it. No, I don't want to be a good man, but you have no option. No, I want to be a bad man. If you have done good actions in the past, if you have helped people to cross the street, an old blind man, and you go to your room and sit inside your room and you feel, well, I have done something wonderful. Nobody, no journalist, no publication, no newspaper has photographed you helping a person cross the street, a blind man. But in your own inner mental world, we feel, oh, I have done something good. That's called Kritagrityada. So, Kritasya Krititvad Kritanyada means I had done what I should have done. Kritarthada is another word. Well, I have done something, I have achieved something that I should have achieved. I have done something that I should have done. In the Ishavasya Upanishad, a spiritual seeker, he is praying at the end of his life. He has led a pure life. They say, Kridam smara, Kridam smara, Krido smara, Kridam smara. Oh mind, go back and think about all the good deeds you have done, all the good thoughts you have thought, all the good words you have spoken. So a person who is who is about to die is requesting, pleading to his own mind to go back and think of all the good actions, good samskaras he has accumulated in the mental system. So this you won't miss, and you are born, you will be born with this spiritual bank balance. So Lord Krishna says, in answer to this, he says, Prapya punyakritam lokan usitva shashwati samaka suchinam simatam gehe yoga prashthabhijayati. So, those who have done a lot of spiritual practices, a lot of good things in their life, but still have some desire, naturally, left still to be fulfilled, such a person will be born again in a family where he will be able to fulfill those unfulfilled desires. And he will be able to progress further. So, spiritual enlightenment is not a free gift that comes from an arbitrator. It is something that we prepare our ground for, our mind for. So that's why such a person will be born in a family. So, Suchinam Simadam. Suchinam Simadam, and there will be good people. If a person has done a lot of spiritual practices, but still some desires to be fulfilled, he will be born in a family to parents who may be saintly enough to allow him to continue his spiritual practices. There are some parents who tell children, no, you don't go to temple, you don't pray too much. Now you try your best to get a high grade. And Indian parents are well known in the Bay Area for pushing their children too much, driving them crazy to go to MIT, and finally actually landing in the lunatic asylums, taking drugs. This happened even to people who are professional doctors. They won't allow their children to practice meditation, japa or anything. It's all too much. Later you do. Now you go, you work hard. But if you have done a lot of spiritual practices, you'll be born in a family where your parents will encourage you to continue your spiritual journey. That is Suchinam. Srimatam. You will have enough wealth, enough prosperity to fulfill the unfulfilled desires of this life. So that desire will be fulfilled so that you can make further progress. It's a very, very, very interesting statement from the Gita. It's a great promise. And then there are those who are still higher, still more highly evolved. Athva yogina meva kule bhavati dhimadam edadhi durlabhadaram janme lokayati. So athva yogina meva, or they'll be born in families where the parents themselves will be yogis. See, Gyaneshu's life is an example. His father was a monk who, if I don't want to go to stories, and it said that he left his home and went to Benares or some pilgrim place, according to one story. There are maybe many stories. And then his widowed mother actually happened to meet a great saint, and the saint promised her Putravadi Bhava, means you be endowed with a son. Then the poor lady cried and said, my husband has left long. Then the saint discovered that his own disciple was the husband. So he asked him to go back, and the great saint was born. So even Athva Yogina Meva Kule Bhavati Dhimata. Such rare, great saints will be looking for such highly exalted parents, and will be born in their families. And Edahi Durlabhadaram Loke Janma Yadidrisham. So such manifestations are very rare, comparatively speaking. Which means no one has to worry. Am I wasting my money and energy by doing spiritual practices? Even if you don't get anything or much in this life, you are not going to lose anything. So that is a great promise from the Gita. So even if you are not able to fully practice this yajna or this karma yoga, the higher spiritual life, still even an effort in the right direction itself is a great progress. A little bit of an effort, maybe a few, whenever we have enough time, going and listening to these ideas itself is a big leap forward, because that will be a small amount you are putting in the bank in your name. And when you put money in your name, you can't lose it. Even if you want to lose it, even if you have to disown it, you cannot. Because that's why samskaras will not ask you permission to follow you when you're born again. That's why Swamiji says in one context, you can't be a good man if you don't have good samskaras, and you can't be bad man. Well, if you tomorrow onwards, I shall tell a lie. When you really speak, it will be truth only. And of course, the opposite examples also are there, unfortunately. So the point is, our samskaras actually constitute our mind. And then Tatradam Buddhi Samyogam Labade Paurodehikam. So Paurodehikam Buddhi Yogam. See, Purvadeha means the body we had in our previous life. Our body was burned into burned dead bodies. But see, our hands and feet and head and ears and eyes all will disappear. But what samskaras we have gained by seeing, by hearing, by working with our hands, those samskaras will be retained in the mental system called chittam. It's a repository of samskaras and characteristics and attitudes and behavior patterns. It's called antakarana, mana, buddhi, chitta, ahankara. So that mechanism called antakaranam, or mainly buddhi or chittam, will accompany you when you're born again. There is no option, there is no running away from it. And when you are born with such a samskara, then you walk in front of Vedanta society with that samskara in the spiritual bank. What happens when you see the place of Upanishads, so any of these great teachings are going on, suddenly you feel like, oh, let me enter that. Why? Because those samskaras are pulling you forward. If the samskaras are opposite, then you run away from that place, go in the opposite direction, which I'm not going to explain in detail about. So the point is, the tatradam buddhi samyogam labhade paurvadekikam. Buddhi samyogam means coming together, your buddhi, your mind, has all these samskaras. With that, you are walking in front of a temple, in front of a place where spiritual discussions are going on. You go and sit in the hall. You feel at home in that place. You don't feel any conflict. If your mind doesn't have the support of good samskaras, you feel a terrible restlessness. Oh, this Vedanta, this spiritual talk, so terrible. And we feel like running away from it. Because there's a mismatch between the ideas discussed and where our mind stands. If the mind and ideas discussed have something in common, we feel at home, we feel harmony, we feel like being spiritually enriched. We feel at home in the true sense of the word, the figure at home. That is buddhi samyogam labhade pauradehikam. Yatadecha tato bhuya samsiddho kurunantana. Then what happens? We continue our journey from that state onwards. Purvabhyasena tenaiva. Hridihi avashopi saha. Purvabhyasa. Practices, good actions, meditations, coming from previous life. Purvabhyasena, purva janma abhyasena. That is the meaning. Coming from previous life cycles, which we don't know. Maybe many lifestyle cycles back, many janmas back, maybe in the first 1000 BC, we may have meditated. And then nothing for the last 3000 years. Still, if those samskaras are strong enough, they may suddenly come to the surface. That's why I mentioned, the homes you find children who have got special skills in music, in families where there is no musical tradition at all. So your biology professor will not be able to explain it. It's an accident. Even accident has a sequence, in a cause-effect link. Children who are interested in creative writings, or music, art, certain skills for which there is no trace of any biological heredity in families. How do you explain? That person is bringing it from somewhere else, another life cycle. You cannot escape from it. So, purvabhyasena teneva avashopi sakha. You are helpless. Avasha means you have no freedom. It is not within you. It is not within your power to act against your own inherited, natural, spontaneous samskaras. So such a person will move forward. So anyway, so the point is, what Lord Krishna says is this. Even a little bit of this practice will help us. Now, there are certain examples you find in an Hindu tradition, Mahabharata, Bhagavata, and other creative writings. You find many examples which illustrate this. I can give an example. Look at Ajamilo Vakhyanam is an important theme in the Bhagavata Purana. Even Vyasa himself is an example which I'm going to discuss later. See, Vyasa himself was the most enlightened author and monk and saint and philosopher of his times. His own son, Shuka Brahmarshi, was the greatest of the saints of those times. But this man was suffering from anxiety, neurosis, and depression and withdrawal symptoms. Vyasa, the mighty Vyasa himself. And he was sitting on the banks of river Saraswati, looking at the sky, wondering, what's the matter with me? So at that time, Narada appeared. Narada came there. He was wondering about this great philosopher, saint of ancient India. So he asked Vyasa, what's the matter with you? You should be the most contented personality today. You are the most accomplished. This man he edited the whole Vedas into 4. Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharvaveda, and he has himself Vyasa Smriti is the oldest Smriti, older than Manusmriti. Vyasa Smriti itself is very important. That's the first great book that clearly classified the Hindu canonical tradition. Sudhi Smriti Purananam Vidodo Yatradusya Tatra Saudam Pramanam Syat Ayodvaithe Smriti Vara. Vyasa's commentary in the first part itself you find this. So this is the detailed description of Hindu canon. And he himself wrote Mahabharata. You know, Mahabharata in its larger version is 13 times, more than 13 times as big as Homer's Iliad and Odyssey and Virgil's Aeneid put together. The greatest of Latin and Greek classics put together, multiply 13 times more than that. Vyasa's one of his books, mind you. And he has written 36 books, Mahabharata, 18 Mahabhuranas, 18 Upapuranas. So it's better not to begin a description of Vyasa's achievements. Such a highly accomplished person was suffering from depression and withdrawal symptoms. So Narada asked him, what's the matter with you? So Vyasa said, I don't know what's the matter with me. Then Narada told, I know the problem with you. You have written Mahabharata. Okay, you are very proud of it. Mahabharata itself, it is not a spiritual classic except some of these great books. Mahabharata as a classic, literary classic, describes dharma. And dharma, as understood in Mahabharata, is what is constitutional propriety, not ethical, moral, or spiritual propriety. Dharma in the Mahabharata context has to do more with constitutional propriety. What the constitution says may not be morally right or ethically right. So in the Mahabharata, you have got Rajadharma, Nribadharma. Even Duryodhana gives a detailed description of his own. If Duryodhana had got a good lawyer, he would have got scot-free. Suppose Hitler had a most brilliant lawyer. He could have got a wonderful argument about all this. The most evil, monstrous person can have a brilliant attorney and win the case. That is constitutional propriety. Narada told him, you wrote dharma. Dharma is neutral. A brilliant lawyer can argue the case from this side or that side. One of our greatest monks of the order, belonging to the period later than the direct disciples, Swami Tyagishananda was a brilliant lawyer who actually won a case. The verdict was in his favor. He was one of the greatest Sanskrit Vedantic scholars of 20th century in India. He was a disciple of Swami Tatvamayanandaji. This Swami was a brilliant lawyer. When the verdict went in his favor, he privately asked the client, did you really tell me a lie? He said yes. And he stopped his practice, joined, and became a monk. Swami Tyagi Shalata. So, what is constitutionally correct may not be ethically and morally, spiritually correct. Then Vyasa asked Narada, what should I do for getting peace of mind? He said, you should do something that's good for others. You should do something that will illustrate a path for other people's spiritual progress. When you do something that gives contentment and happiness to others, then you will get contentment and happiness. And he wrote Bhagavata Purana. So Bhagavata Purana, he started with the Brahma Sutra. Then he ended with Satyam Param Dhimahi. And when he ended Bhagavata Purana Satyam Param Dhimahi, the last chapter, 335th chapter, 18,000 verses, 12 skandhas, he got peace of mind. So when we do something good for others, that's good for others, without any selfish motive, we are actually putting a huge wealth in our own spiritual bank. So even the little bit of physical activity can be converted to spiritual energy. Physical energy can be sublimated into spiritual energy. We may not have much choice of freedom at the mental level. See, tomorrow I'm going to start meditation. Maybe mind will not cooperate, as I explained this morning. But tomorrow I'm going to walk in the eastern direction. You have more freedom. At the physical level, you have more freedom and autonomy than the mental level. So at the physical level, if you do any kind of good activity, good action, then slowly our mind also will start moving and changing and getting refined. And that's how we put money in the spiritual bank. Then our samskaras will improve, mind will improve, because mind is nothing but a repository of good samskaras. So that's why Lord Krishna says again and again, he will repeat, if you cannot do everything or anything without a selfish motive, do something good with a selfish motive. That is the kindergarten of spiritual life. And then you will graduate to the next level of doing good things without a selfish motive. Some people have very, very strange, wrong ideas. They will say, I won't do anything because I cannot do anything without a selfish motive. So there's a story. A father asked his son to bring a glass of water. The old man was dying. The son said, no, I won't bring a glass of water because then I will feel egoistic. I have brought you a glass of water. So I won't bring you a glass of water. So people feel, I won't do anything. I won't believe in God because that is selfish. I have to pray for my own spiritual enlightenment. That is selfish. So I won't pray for it. So there is a little bit of hypocrisy also involved in it, So Lord Krishna says, it's better to do your duty in whatever way possible at the beginning of a spiritual life, to do everything. If we cannot do without a selfish motive, do with a selfish motive, but do good actions. Because the good samskaras generated by good actions done with a selfish motive will give a promotion to our mind. Slowly our mind will learn to do good actions without a selfish motive. That's why Ramanuja's commentary on Udara Sarva Eva Ede Jnana, you find, I'm not going to come into those details. Ramanuja says, if a devotee prays to God for his secular desires, fulfillment of secular desires, promotion, job, money, wealth, good home, which are natural, then slowly, gradually, he will start praying or worshipping or propitiating God without any selfish prayers. Out of a sense of gratitude, he will continue. There's a gradual evolution from the physical to mental and spiritual. So we'll discuss this Bhakti Yoga maybe in the afternoon session. So it's always better to do our duty in whatever way it is possible, to the best of our ability, with a high purpose, high goal, step number one. Second, with a high purpose, high goal without a selfish motive. That is second step. Third step is this becomes a natural characteristic. It is called Sakama Karma, Nishkama Karma, and Karma Yoga Nishtha is called. So these are three stages in our evolution. First, do our duty, whether we can do it with selfish motive or not, in a very high-spirited, efficient manner. Second, do the same without a selfish motive. Third, that should become our second nature. So we'll discuss this later in the afternoon session. You can now have interaction, maybe for a few minutes, I believe. If there is time. Time is there. Yeah. Yeah. The time is there. Yeah.
Swamiji, I have a question. Don't you feel like when you have read Krishna saying that you have a past good karma and always great things are happening to you? It does happen in my life. Always any problems look so miserable, just get dissolved right away. I get a good result. I always think I'm so fortunate. I have a great life going. Even small problems, I don't react to those. So I feel like I'm so fortunate. Maybe I have done good actions in the past life. Is it ego? Why I feel that way?
Yeah, if you can just think it's by the grace of God, then your ego also will get a sublimation, a promotion. So if good things come to our mind, in our life, we happen to experience good things, then frequently there's a chance that we may interpret everything, it's because of our merit. So there is a way to solve the problem by the grace of God.
Yes.
Otherwise, it is the recipe for disaster.
Disaster, yes. So I hope.
When you have good things happening all the time, we can do that. When bad things happening, we don't have anyone to blame for. So better you just it's God's will or God. That helps us to look at both with the same equanimity of mind.
Very nice.
It's better not to be elated too much, because if you are too elated, then a stage will come when you'll be less happy, and that will become a terrible unhappiness. So better to look at both with some degree of equanimity. From a Vedantic perspective, it may be difficult, but there's a way of looking at it with a sense of equilibrium, everything by the grace of God. Then both become equally acceptable. Okay.
That's hard, I know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I remember that. And fortunately or unfortunately, my husband is Gnostic. He has no belief in God. He won't let me talk about anything that I learned in spirituality. I've lived with him for 45 years now. But he permits me to go to do what I like to do. He permits me, he doesn't complain or he doesn't stop me from going do what
that's a great thing. So there are wonderful people who may not themselves be believing in God, but they won't mind if their near and dear ones believe. That's a great thing. That's a magnanimity. That is a spiritual quality.
I tell
you, because I have seen the opposite examples. You know why I'm telling you? I have seen the opposite examples.
I know.
There are people who enforce and thrust upon their own near and dear ones, their own agnostic, atheistic, nihilistic ideas. But people who, okay, please go ahead, fine. That is a spiritual attitude. That broad-mindedness is a spiritual outlook. So that's important. Spirituality as such goes beyond conventional interpretations of religion, like faith in God. I've seen this frequently. Spirituality, really speaking, goes beyond conventional definitions of God and religion. So if a person is broad-minded enough to let others go for higher values without interference, that's a great spiritual attitude.
I think it might be hypocrisy.
Intolerance, no, it's not hypocrisy. Intolerance, low, narrow-mindedness, narrow outlook. These are non-spiritual or unspiritual. Yeah.
Thank you. Swamiji, one of the things I have always been troubled with is people and family around you that have a great deal of negativity. Yet at the same time, there's a huge amount of hypocrisy. These are people that consider themselves supremely religious, and their way of rituals, if you don't follow them, then they look down upon you. But at the same time, they're so short-tempered, they cannot tolerate the negativity, just living with people like that. How do you go through life handling situations like that?
Better associate with people who are broad-minded. Fortunately, the people who are totally different from them. Fortunately, there are broad-minded people, good people, who understand the limitations of these narrow-minded people. I have seen this. I have come across many people who are very clannish, very narrow-minded, very insular. They close their windows among them. That's true. But the point is, there are also wonderful people who are broad-minded, who are very Catholic-minded, very tolerant. They're wonderful people in the world. So that has been the case all the time in the world, history of the world. You can't expect see good people everywhere. So in a way, good and bad equation may itself be somewhat inaccurate. What is more technically correct is to say the people who are less evolved and those who are more evolved. So even a kindergarten child is not totally ignorant. Only his level of knowledge is a bit less, that's all. That's not a problem. It's just it's a matter of everything is relative.
Okay, one more question.
Hello. Namaste, Swamiji. It's about, I'm here.
Yeah.
It's about the interaction between Narada and Vedavyasa.
Yeah.
You said Narada told Vyasa that although he wrote Mahabharata and a lot of other scriptures, he did not write anything that will help people make spiritual progress. But my question is, Bhagavad Gita is part of the Mahabharata.
Yeah.
And if we read the Bhagavad Gita, we can make spiritual progress.
Yeah.
So why did Narada say?
That forms the subject tomorrow. Tomorrow we are going to discuss. This Bhagavad Gita was unknown to anyone before Shankaracharya wrote a commentary on this. So we have to remember Mahabharata and Bhagavata together has got innumerable Gitas. Uddhava Gita, Sudhi Gita, in Bhagavata and Vyadha Gita, Uttara Gita, Bhagavad Gita. So many Gitas in the Mahabharata. So many. 18, there are 18 Gitas. 18 in Bhagavata and Mahabharata put together. Now, if Shankaracharya had not written a commentary on the Gita in the 8th century, we won't be reading Bhagavad Gita today. This is something very important for us to remember. So, this discussion appears to have taken place much earlier. See, Bhagavata Purana, in its present context, literally speaking, belongs to 6th century AD. Even during Shankaracharya's time, Bhagavata Purana was not known, as we under 18 verses, 18,000 verses with 12 skandhas and 335 chapters. But Bhagavata Purana existed in a subtler form, in a shorter form, for many centuries. So that Bhagavata Purana was not known. And Mahabharata, for your information, was never considered to be a spiritual classic in India. Before this great jewel of Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita, was specially selected by Shankaracharya, and he wrote his marvelous commentary on this. Without Shankara, there will be no Vedanta today, there will be no Gita today. Vedanta as an ideal existed. It goes all the way back to Rigvedic times. The Vedanta philosophy, as a universal philosophy, as we understand today, is the creation of Shankaracharya. Not Vedanta experience or Vedanta ideal, but Vedanta as a compact metaphysical system. So that's an important point, remember. So when there was a discussion between Vyasa and Narada, Narada was asking Vyasa, did you write something by reading which the common people will know what they should do to do Hari Bhajanam, to do puja, to meditate? And suddenly Vyasa said no, because Mahabharata doesn't deal with that. There are many verses in Mahabharata which deal with this, but it's a huge work. It is one of the itihasas. It is one of the literary classics. It is not like Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita itself is a Mahabharata. To give an example, I shall try to emphasize. There is another very important Gita. There are many, but one important Vyadha Gita, which is from a metaphysical standpoint, it is even far higher than Bhagavad Gita. But because Shankaracharya's spiritual touch is not there, so it is not understood, it is not read by anybody with any significance. So that should be kept in mind. Thank you. Namaskar. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.